I caught my spoiled sister making out with my boyfriend just a week before her wedding. Unable to stay silent, I called her fiancé. At first, I thought he ignored it, but he made a huge announcement on the wedding day. Betrayal has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. I thought my relationship was solid, and I believed my sister was focused on her upcoming wedding. But all of that shattered in an instant when I walked into my boyfriend's apartment and saw my spoiled older sister wrapped around him, locked in a passionate embrace. For a few seconds, my mind refused to process what I was seeing. Then the rage kicked in. I did not scream. I did not make a scene. Instead, I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture, and walked out. My sister was getting married in a week, and I was not about to let her fiancé walk blindly into a life with someone so unfaithful. I called him that night, expecting an immediate reaction. But he barely responded. I thought he was ignoring it. I was wrong. Growing up, my older sister, Jessica, was always the golden child. She was beautiful, charming, and spoiled rotten by our parents. She could do no wrong in their eyes, and I was always in her shadow. Whenever we fought, I was the one blamed. Whenever she wanted something, she got it, even if it meant taking it from me. I learned early on not to challenge her because somehow she always won. But as we grew older, I tried to believe she had changed. She met a wonderful guy named Adam, kind, respectful, and financially stable. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple. They were engaged and planning a grand wedding, and my parents were ecstatic. Meanwhile, I had been dating my boyfriend, Ryan, for 2 years. Unlike Adam, Ryan was reckless and charming, but I loved him. I believed he loved me too. Then, just a week before Jessica's wedding, everything fell apart. That evening, I was supposed to meet Ryan for dinner. He had been acting distant lately, but I assumed it was just work stress. I arrived at his apartment, and the door was slightly open. That was odd. Ryan was usually very careful. Stepping inside, I heard muffled laughter and whispers. My stomach twisted, and I moved cautiously toward the living room. Then I saw them. Jessica, my own sister, in my boyfriend's arms. She was giggling, her fingers running through his hair, her lips pressed against his. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. My body went numb, and for a moment I stood frozen in place, barely breathing. How could they do this to me? I refused to give them the satisfaction of an outburst. Instead, I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture, and left. That night, I made a choice. I would not let this slide. Jessica was getting married in a week, and I had Adam's number. I called him. The weight of what I had just witnessed was suffocating. My mind was spinning, my hands were shaking, and my chest felt tight with anger and betrayal. Jessica, my own sister, making out with my boyfriend Ryan, a week before her wedding. It was a scene that felt straight out of a bad soap opera, but it was real. I had barely managed to take a picture before backing out of the room unseen. My breath was uneven, my stomach twisted in knots. How could she do this? How could he? I drove home in a daze, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My head throbbed as a war raged inside me. Do I tell Adam, Jessica's fiancé? Do I confront Jessica and Ryan first? Would anyone even believe me? By the time I stepped into my apartment, I had made my decision. Adam deserved to know the truth. I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. It rang a few times before he picked up. Hey, this is Adam. Hearing his voice made my stomach drop. He had no idea. Adam, I need to tell you something, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's about Jessica. There was a pause. A heavy silence. What about her? His voice was cautious now. I swallowed hard. She's cheating on you. There was an even longer silence this time. Then a short, humorless laugh. That is a bold accusation. And with who exactly? I squeezed my eyes shut, dreading his reaction. Ryan, I whispered. The silence was deafening. Then finally he exhaled sharply. Ryan, your boyfriend. His voice was eerily calm, but there was an edge to it. Yes. I saw them tonight. I took a picture. My hands were shaking as I sent him the photo. I waited, feeling my heartbeat in my throat. When his response finally came, it was just 2 words. Where are you? At home. I will be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. When Adam arrived, I barely recognized him. His usually calm, charming demeanor was gone. He looked different, tense, cold, calculating. He stepped into my apartment, his eyes immediately locking onto mine. Show me the picture again. I handed him my phone. He stared at the image, jaw tightening. His hands were trembling. You are absolutely sure this is what it looks like? He asked, his voice low. Adam, I saw it with my own eyes. It was not just a moment of weakness. They were completely into each other. He let out a slow breath, his lips pressing into a thin line. For a second, I thought he was going to break something. I should not even be surprised, he muttered. She has always been like this. Selfish. Entitled. I ignored so many red flags. I hesitated. Red flags? Like what? Like the way she flirts with men, even when I am right there. The way she always finds a way to turn things around when I question her loyalty. She always has an excuse, and I always forgive her. Like an idiot. I could see the storm brewing in his eyes. She will deny it, I warned. She will manipulate you. Adam laughed bitterly. She has been manipulating me for years. But not this time. I frowned. What do you mean? He looked up at me, his expression dark and unreadable. Then he said something that sent chills down my spine. I am not going to say anything. Not yet. What? Why not? Because if she thinks I do not know, she will not see it coming. His voice was dangerously calm. So what are you going to do? I asked, suddenly uneasy. He looked at me, a small smirk forming on his lips. I am going to let her walk down the aisle. A chill ran through me. He was planning something. Something big. Adam, what are you thinking? I want her to have the perfect wedding day, he said, voice laced with something almost sinister. The dress. The guests. The vows. Everything. I swallowed. And then, he looked at me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. Then, I will give her a wedding gift she will never forget. The week leading up to the wedding was unbearable. I had to act normal around Jessica, while knowing what she had done. She was completely oblivious, gushing about her dress, the decorations, and the perfect life she was about to start with Adam. Meanwhile, Adam was calm. Too calm. He did not confront her, did not argue, did not give her even a hint that he knew. Instead, he played the perfect fiancé, helpful, loving, supportive. But there was something else. A coldness in his eyes. A sharpness in his tone. I almost felt sorry for Jessica. Almost. The night before the wedding, I saw Ryan for the first time since catching him. He had not even reached out to me. No explanation, no apology. But when he saw me at the rehearsal dinner, his face turned pale. Hey, can we talk? He said hesitantly. I gave him a cold stare. Now you want to talk? He ran a hand through his hair, looking guilty. Look, I made a mistake. It did not mean anything. I was drunk, Anne. Do not. I cut him off, voice low but firm. Do not insult my intelligence with excuses. Ryan sighed. It was just a moment. It did not mean anything. A moment. I scoffed. I have the picture, Ryan. Do not act like it was just some accident. Jessica suddenly appeared behind him, linking her arm through his with a smirk. She was not even ashamed. Sister, you always were so dramatic, she said sweetly. Maybe if you were not so boring, Ryan would not have wanted me instead. I clenched my fists. You are disgusting. Jessica simply laughed and turned to Ryan. Come on, babe. We have a wedding to celebrate tomorrow. She had no idea her entire world was about to collapse. The venue was packed. Family, friends, business associates. Everyone was there, smiling, taking pictures, unaware of the storm about to hit. Jessica walked down the aisle, beaming, glowing, believing she was about to have the perfect day. I looked at Adam, who stood at the altar, looking like the perfect groom. But I knew better. He was waiting for the perfect moment. The officiant began speaking. Jessica was practically bouncing with excitement. Jessica and Adam, today is a day of love and unity. Do you, Adam, take Jessica to be your lawfully wedded wife? Silence. A long, heavy silence. Jessica's smile wavered. Adam, she whispered, laughing nervously. Then, Adam pulled a small envelope from his pocket. Before I answer that, I have something to share with all of you, he said, his voice smooth but laced with steel. Jessica stiffened. Adam, what are you? He held up a hand, cutting her off. You see, I was excited for this wedding. I thought I had found the woman I wanted to spend my life with. But a week ago, I received a very interesting photo. A photo of my fiancé kissing another man. My fiancé, ladies and gentlemen, was cheating on me with her sister's boyfriend. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jessica's face drained of color. That is a lie, she shrieked. Adam ignored her and pulled out a projector remote. A huge screen behind them suddenly flickered to life. And then the picture I had taken, Jessica and Ryan tangled together, completely exposed, flashed across the screen. The entire wedding exploded into chaos. Jessica screamed. Her parents gasped. Ryan tried to bolt, but someone grabbed him. Guests whispered, horrified. Adam turned back to Jessica. So, Jessica, do I take you as my lawfully wedded wife? He smirked. No, I do not. He tossed the microphone and walked off, leaving Jessica standing there, humiliated, shaking, and completely alone. The moment Adam left the venue, everything fell apart. The elegant wedding hall, once a scene of love and celebration, had turned into a battlefield of rage, betrayal, and humiliation. The guests, still seated in their rows, exchanged stunned glances, unsure whether to stay or leave. Some whispered, others outright gossiped. Is this real? Did she actually cheat on him with her sister's boyfriend? Oh my God, look at her mother's face, she is mortified. No wonder she was always the golden child. She could get away with anything, until now. The murmurs grew louder, and Jessica, still frozen at the altar in her designer gown, snapped out of her trance. The reality of what had just happened hit her like a truck. Her breathing became erratic. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Then, in an explosive fit of rage, she grabbed her bouquet and threw it at the giant screen, as if destroying the evidence would somehow change the truth. The flowers crashed against the screen and fell to the floor, petals scattering everywhere. Her father, a man who had always looked at her with pride, now stared at her with disappointment so deep it cut through the room like a knife. What the hell is this, Jessica? He demanded, his voice sharp and unforgiving. Her mother, usually her biggest defender, stood beside him shaking her head in horror. Jessica, you humiliated us in front of everyone. Do you realize what you have done? Jessica spun around, searching for someone to blame, someone to latch onto. And then her eyes landed on me. This is your fault, she shrieked, her voice cracking. I did not even flinch. My fault? I asked, crossing my arms. You did this to yourself. Ryan, who had been standing there in complete humiliation, finally found his voice. He stepped toward Jessica, whispering urgently. Jessica, we need to leave. Right now. She whirled on him like a storm. Leave, she screeched. You think I am going anywhere with you? This is your fault too. Ryan looked completely taken aback. His face twisted with frustration. Are you serious right now? I lost my girlfriend, my reputation, everything because of you. Jessica scoffed and shoved him hard in the chest. You were the one making out with me, you idiot. The entire room gasped. The guests, who had been whispering before, now openly watched the drama unfold like it was a soap opera. People had their phones out, recording every second. This was the type of scandal no one wanted to miss. As Jessica and Ryan continued their shouting match in front of everyone, Adam's parents finally stepped forward. His mother, a dignified woman who had once adored Jessica, now looked at her with absolute disgust. You had everything, Jessica, she said coldly. My son loved you. He was ready to give you the world. And you threw it away for this? She gestured toward Ryan with disdain. Jessica's desperation grew. She turned back to her parents, her last hope. Mom, Dad, you have to fix this, she begged. Her father shook his head. His voice was heavy with disappointment. Jessica, you are on your own. Jessica let out a choked sob. She looked around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But all she found were judgmental stares, amused smirks, and cameras recording her downfall. Her mother, unable to take the humiliation any longer, grabbed her husband's hand and turned away. One by one, people began walking out. The wedding was officially over. Jessica was left standing alone, surrounded by the shattered remains of her perfect world. Adam had already walked out, head held high, his suit still crisp despite the chaos he had just endured. I hesitated for a moment before following him outside. Adam, I called. He stopped and turned to me. A small, tired smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Hey, he said softly. I walked up to him, unsure of what to say at first. Finally, I settled on the most important question. Are you okay? Adam let out a quiet chuckle. Better than I thought I would be. Thanks to you. I shifted awkwardly. I was afraid you would not believe me. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I did not want to at first, he admitted. But deep down I knew. I just needed proof. And you gave it to me. There was a long pause between us. The weight of everything that had happened was settling in. Then Adam smiled, really smiled. You know, he said, I think I just dodged a lifetime of misery. And I have you to thank for that. I laughed, relieved. You really did. He glanced at me, then chuckled. Want to go grab a drink? Celebrate my newfound freedom. I hesitated for only a second before nodding. I would like that. Jessica lost everything. Her fiancé, her reputation, and even the favor she had always held over me. I had spent my entire life being pushed aside for her, always made to feel like I was second best. But in the end, it was her own selfishness and arrogance that destroyed her. As for me, I walked away from that disaster with my dignity intact, and unexpectedly, with a new friend in Adam. And maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something even better. What do you think? Would you have exposed Jessica, or would you have stayed silent? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon, to stay tuned for more incredible stories.